everyone. Welcome to Homemakers Radio. If you're new here, please click the link in the description on the channel and go to the page on which I have embedded this video so that you can see the summarization, maybe a few things that I add, and maybe some pictures around the manse. And today I'm going to be talking about handling a crisis in the home, maybe averting a crisis. We can't always do that, but because it's inevitable. And as Barbara Johnson said in her book, Stick a Geranium in Your Hat and Be Happy, she said, pain is inevitable, but misery is optional. So that's going to take a while for you to mull over. So also, for the first thing to do in any crisis, if you have a crisis, I'm doing a series, this is number 6, and I don't want to give the impression that homemaking and life at home and homeschooling is full of error and tragedy and sadness and loss. I am just covering it because it will be a part of everyone's life, whether they're home or not. But I think we take it as homemakers so seriously because this is our effort and our profession, and if it fails, if something fails, then we take it to heart. Other people who aren't focusing on the home, maybe out working all the time, care more maybe about their employment. If they lose employment, that's more of a tragedy to them because that's what they have buried their lives in. But we at home have put our efforts into people, the people that we love. And although we might talk about cooking and decorating and wearing something pretty and taking care of ourselves, that's not the essence of everything. We're just doing that as a side thing for what we are really all about, which is making a home and helping in the destiny of the people that we're in charge of. And so today I'll just start out by talking about the voice of the shepherd. You know, that comes from the book of John, talking about where Jesus said, "My sheep know my voice. They know my voice." So the voice of the shepherd, I mean, you're basically the shepherd at home with your little sheep, and you're nurturing them into adulthood, and you want them to be well cared for and avoid danger. And if you ever study anything about shepherd and sheep, and if you have an older child at home that's growing a little bit interested in leaving or in any way being lured away from his home, have him find something about the shepherd and the sheep, and how the shepherd what the responsibility of the shepherd is should be very important to these sheep that you're in charge of, because they're all just thinking of themselves. But the shepherd they might grow resentful because you as a mother or a wife say things of caution, and they might grow resentful and say, well, just let me make my own mistakes. Actually, they're making other people's mistakes. They're not making their own mistakes, because there's nothing new under the sun. And so they need to know the relationship between the shepherd and the sheep. And it's the same with the Bible. If they are educated in this, and they know enough, and you know me, I've only used a few, maybe 5 scriptures with you in all these years. Probably use the same 5 scriptures over and over, and yet you can detect what is false in the world compared with the voice of the shepherd, what's in the Word. You can say, well, that doesn't quite square up with what I'm knowing about what the scriptures tell me to do, and what the scriptures say. It's not lovely, it's not pure, it's not right, it's rebellious. And so you learn to have to hear the voice of the shepherd. So you, as the shepherd of your children and as a caregiver to your husband, are going to have to be alert and know the difference between the voice of the shepherd and the voice of the world. So it's kind of combined. So let me just tell you a few things that I have thought about this week. The voice of the shepherd and the voice of your mother. The voice of your mother is really important. So when you're talking to these people, these young people or your husband, you need to use their name, because when you use their name and you say um, Frank or Johnny, it jolts them back into who they belong to, and they hear your voice because that's their mother's voice. They can never get rid of it out of their minds. It will always be there. I remember when my mother used to call me, and I was already 50 years old, but every time, and even when I was in my 60s and she used to call me, I, because, she lived to be in her 80s, I would just, her voice took me back to security, to a feeling of home. And you can never leave that. So always make sure you keep communication with them. Don't ignore them. And if they get a little hostile to you, or they're saying things that kind of strike you as wrong, make sure to keep talking, because that's part of our duty as parents to teach and to nurture. And so I'm going to go through, I've taken some notes here, they're really messy, but I'm going to go through some things that you might find a little bit amusing, a little bit interesting. So there was a scripture that I didn't look up, and I wanted to tell, so if you're a young person and you're able to understand what I'm saying, I wanted to tell you about this, and it might have come from Ecclesiastes, from Solomon in Ecclesiastes. I can almost quote it, but I didn't look it up, and it was, "Enjoy your youth before the hard times come." And what it meant, and it went on to describe the hard times. Goodness, I might take a moment here and look it up, but enjoy your youth before the hard times come. That means to me, stay home with your parents, find out how you can serve them, find out how you can be a responsible young woman or a responsible young man in your own home, from your own home, serving your own people, serving your parents who have put so much effort into who you are right now. And it was about before the hard times come. And I believe it was in Ecclesiastes. And goodness, I can't find it right now, but the hard times come when you will be responsible to pay for your living. You will be responsible to get yourself to and from work on time. You'll be responsible for paying a lot of things, and someone else will actually own you. The world will actually own you. You will be sucked in to the life of the world for survival, and the hard times will come. And then you will get married and you will have children, and there will be hard times. So enjoy your life at home, and enjoy it, because it is not burdensome compared to what is coming. So I'm going to just take a moment here and look this up, and you can maybe get something done. I wanted to start out too by saying, before you listen to the rest of this, please go and do something about your appearance. Go do something with yourself, comb your hair, brush your teeth, wash your face, put on something nice. And I'm speaking to the young ladies and young men at home today. So if you are inclined to listen to me, please go and do that while I look this up. I wish I had some background. Do you want me to sing while you wait? Do you want me to wait? I was just saying maybe I could provide some kind of silly background music, a cappella, while you wait, because I want to find this, and this is so important. You probably already know it. You probably already know it. It's Ecclesiastes 11:9-10. Okay, so here it is. Okay, here it is. Remember also your Creator in the days of your youth, before the hard days come. The Greek word is evil days. come and the years draw near of which you will say, I have no pleasure in them. Now, you have to notice this because as you get older, it's not a long golden summer existence to you anymore. It's not these frolicking days of your childhood anymore, and you don't have as much pleasure in them. You start to look at life differently. So let me just read that to you again. Uh, Remember the Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of adversity come, and the years approach you, of which you will say, I find no pleasure in them. So I think that that is something you need to memorize, and it was Ecclesiastes 12, verse 1. So this is why I say stay home, even if you're 17, 18, 19, 20. Stay home until you're married. The only reason to leave home would be to get married and get into your own home. Because here's the advantages. Even if you go out and get a job, you don't have to pay a huge amount of rent. How many of you as parents have been in this situation where you thought you should get out on your own, or your parents maybe even sent you out to get a job and find a place to live, and you couldn't get anywhere? You could not get ahead. All your money was sucked up in your housing, your transportation, and your food, and you could not. And I often get online and read what people are saying about young people, and they say, well, the reason they can't get ahead is they not saving their money. How can you save your money? You start out with a very low wage. How can you save your money with all these people sucking it out of you for rent and for gasoline and for everything, every move you make? And I've even heard of people who rent out rooms. This is what's coming to now here in the U.S. is that before, young people didn't have to go and live in board in other people's houses. Well, it's starting to be a big industry now because housing is so high, and they will rent out one bedroom to someone and then charge them for parking their car in the driveway or near the house. They'll charge them for parking anywhere on their I mean, they're just taking everything they can. And then charge them for their internet, and charge them for any electricity or water they use, charge them for going to for anything that they use, and charge them for housekeeping, which they don't do because the owner has to clean house. They're sucking everything out of you. You think you're going to be free. You're not going to be free. Life is going to be hard. And then life is going to be so hard, and all you'll do is be mechanical. You'll be going to work, coming back home. You can't afford to do anything else. You can't afford to enjoy life, go to a bookstore, browse around, buy a book. So you'll be so tired of it and so bored with it, and it'll be so hard that when you do have time off, you waste your time going to a movie, eating popcorn, or hanging out with friends, wasting time, not really developing yourself, and you'll become totally stagnant. And so I'm just talking off of the top of my head, and part of it is that I'm trying to relate a lot of experiences that people have told me too. And so here's what you need to know. You need to know that you should enjoy your youth before the hard times come, when you will say, I have no pleasure in them. The hard days, you will say, I have no pleasure in them. And I have watched a channel called the Presley Girls, and it's two S's in Presley, and their mother is Life in Appalachia, or Appalachia. And so I've watched those two channels for many, many years. And the girls, when they were really young, and they play instruments, and so they play the bluegrass Appalachian music, and so that's one reason that I watched them. And also watched their mother, because she gets on there and explains words, Appalachian words, and the different meanings. And these people came from originally, I believe, Scotland and Ireland, and they're the Scotch-Irish in many respects, but they have a history, and I like to watch them. Well, these two girls, when they turned 18, they went and did a concert somewhere, and one of them was talking a little bit while she was tuning her guitar, and she said, I used to think when I was growing up that I couldn't wait till I was 18 because then I was really life was just going to be wonderful and it was going to be so free. And she says it's even worse than it was before I was 18, because she says now there's so much more responsibility. There's so much that has to be remembered, and and she said, when I get my driver's license, though, that'll be great. But then there's all the other things that go with it, all the other responsibilities, and life gets harder. So if you're home and you don't have you don't have a car, you don't have a driver's license, stay that way as long as you can, and you're going to build up. Your parents can. I've often told parents, don't make slave labor out of your children, but pay them a little money. I have a grandson that comes and helps me sometimes with my computer. I give him money before he's gas and before he comes, and then also, but you parents, you can save your children's money. You can say, I'm going to charge you rent, a little rent. If they're earning any money, charge you a little rent. You can save it and then give it back to them on their wedding day, or you can give them a little money so that they can learn to shop responsibly. And but remember, you that are still at home, enjoy. I'm just going to read that to you again. I'm just going to pound this in the whole time here. Okay, kids, you're listening to, if you're going to challenge me on this, you're listening to the wrong granny. I'll read it in several different versions. Would you like that? Let's just start over here. Okay. Remember also your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come and the years draw near, of which you say, I have no pleasure in them. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of adversity come. And I believe the Greek was evil or adversity. Before the days of adversity comes. Yes, you're going to get married. You're going to be buying a house or building a house. It's stressful beyond belief. There's no relief from it. You're going to have a baby crying all night. Your ears are going to rattle while the evil days come not. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when you shall say, I have no pleasure in them. Remember now your Creator in the days of your youth, before the difficult days come, and the years draw near, when you say, I have no pleasure in them. Remember thy Creator in the days of your youth, before the time of affliction come, and the years draw nigh, of which thou shalt say, they please me not. I bet you want to have a guess what version that is. I might tell you. So here's another one. Remember also thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while that the evil days come not, nor the years have arrived, that thou sayest, I have no pleasure in them. That's a literal translation straight from the Aramaic or the Hebrew. Okay. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of adversity come. So we have several words here: adversity, evil, difficulty. So I think I've worn that one out fairly well. Now let's get back to my notes, and I do hope to read a little bit today from Wives and Daughters. Now this is for all of you who are still at home and you're patiently waiting, and it is, you will say, oh, it's boring at home, I just want more, I just want to get out there. You can go on trips with your parents, and if you go out on your own and you leave, you're missing out on the family vacations that are usually paid for, and you will find great difficulty in paying for a vacation. And I have seen young people drawn out of their homes by other people who say, well, you should be out on your own by now. And they get to working and they struggle, and then everybody else is taking a vacation and they want you to help them pay for a vacation or pay for a room. Then you get in a vacation and you get to the room that they've rented, or the room that from a hotel or motel, and these kids just goof around all night long and you don't get any sleep, and they drink and they they bring in other people, and it's a nightmare. I am telling you, I've heard these stories. So stay with your family, stay with your parents. You don't have to learn, you don't have to make all these mistakes on your own. They've already been made. You don't have to experience them to know that it's not good. So stay with your family and let them help you plan your exit from home carefully so that it's done. And so, like I said, I've been watching these videos about these girls. They're twins and the Presleys, and they stay home. And one of them is got married today. But I looked back at all her videos. I've been kind of watching everything. She stayed home with her parents, and her husband stayed home with his parents. And there's one trip they took where they live streamed in the car while they talked, this couple, while they were still engaged. And he said to the camera, I really want to thank my parents for what they've done for me, letting me have a place to stay at home while I waited to find my bride and to buy my own house. And so she also was living in her home. And so the first time they spent together alone was after they were married in their own house, and they were able to do that because of their parents, and they thanked their parents that they were able to do that. If you get out and you start working, you're not going to be able to do that unless you have the guidance of your parents, and it's got to be a careful, strategic moves. You can't just jump out and say, oh, I'm going to work. I'm going to go work at the local coffee shop. I'm going to go work at the library. This is not a wholesome place for you. This is not where you live your dreams. I heard a young man just say today that the education that he got through a university was so inadequate because when businesses started shutting down, his degree did not help him at all. And he wishes he had followed the one that he really wanted, the interest that he really had, and worried about the employment last, but follow the interest, because then he would have been further ahead and would know how to market what he was doing. But let me just, I just diverted, okay, so say their name. The other thing is say their name, and remember to say their name, call them by their name, because this has a very big effect on them. The other thing, that one of the things that a person who is straying and who is being lured away. Now they all think that they have been lured away by themselves, that they just their idea, that that's not true. They all think they want to make their own mistake, but that's not true. Someone else or something else is in the picture. And so one of the things they will say is, I decided to quit going to church with mom and dad and my brothers and sisters because I want to go to the church of my choice. Now, I don't know of a denomination with that name, church of my choice, or church of your choice, but you hear that all the time. I just want to go to the church of my choice. So they divert from their family and they go somewhere else where they might not be very discerning of what is being taught there, and it might be stuff that just goes against what the Bible says or what's right, and also creates a division and a friction between them and their parents. If it creates friction between you and your parents, then it's not a worthwhile religion, because it should draw more love between you and your parents. If you're truly studying the Bible and you're truly in harmony with God in your religion, then you're going to be in harmony with your family members. And so it shouldn't cause a rift. So they'll say that. And so with a job, if you're thinking about a job, you need to settle down at home and think about this. You need to prepare yourself at home with the protection of your family. If you get out from under that protection, then I'm telling you, you're going to have rain all around you without an umbrella of adversity and difficulties, like that verse said, and evil, like that verse said. And you don't have to go out and experience it for yourself. You can read about it. People tell you about it. Your parents know about it. The parents that have been out in the world, been sent out in the world to work, they know all these tricks. They know about all the things that were done to them, and it hasn't changed. It's gotten worse. And there are more lures than ever before. So stay home, educate and prepare yourself for when the hard times come. And if you'll do that, if you'll educate yourself at home, the jobs will come looking for you. And you don't have to actually work for anybody. You can work for yourself. And who says you need an employer? Who says you need a boss? Well, that's the way the system runs now. But if you go to work for any of these places in town or any of these companies, that job experience is only valuable while those jobs exist. I know too many people who, during this shutdown, lost their jobs, and they weren't qualified for anything else. Their degrees and their job experience only equip them for those kind of jobs. The same is with we've got to be careful too about the internet. You've got to know you have to have a blue collar job and a white collar job. The white collar job would be your work on the internet, learning on the internet, or doing things for someone that you get paid for on the internet. But the blue collar job are things you do with your hands. You have to have both, because what if the internet shuts down? Can you depend on it? Do you know that this is going to stay this way? You've got to know how to do things outside of what business in town and the internet supply. The experience that you get from that might not suffice at all in hard times. You've got to know a lot of other things, and I will read to you some of those things if you'll just be patient. Don't worry, I won't sing to you. So prepare yourself for the hard times to be able to survive and to be able to thrive and supply for your family. Now, young men and young women, I want to tell you, your minds are not fully developed until you're 27 or 28, maybe even 30. Stay home and let that development come. You're going to be awfully glad you did, because you are supply for people out there. You are supply for the jobs. You're just slave labor. You are also supply for the renters. You're supply for the car companies. You're supply for the insurance companies. You're supply for the health industry. You get all your own thing going, and you're an entity all unto yourself, but you are paying the master with your money. They own you. And so stay home while you can. My daughter had enough sense. She says, "Mom, I watched all these other girls my age at church deciding to go and do their own thing and break free and go get jobs and go get boyfriends and stuff." And so she said, "I just kind of sat in church and I just observed what was happening." And she said, "I decided I didn't want to experience it. I didn't have to experience it to see what it did to them, to see the marriage breakups, the broken hearts, and the poverty that they went into, and the crashed cars, and the repossessions, and the sorrowing parents, and the children, even the public school children that were in church, ended up on, beautiful, beautiful children, beautiful girls that were nice, considered some of the nicest girls, even though they went to public school, because they were in the church, and they just had sweetness and goodness all about them. And some of them ended up never able to get their lives in control on drugs. And it could have started out with a pharmaceutical drug given by a doctor. That's another thing, is that you're supply for doctors. The minute you leave home, or even if you are home and you start working, you're going to get a headache. And so somebody at work is going to say, "Oh, well, here's a tablet you can have." And I would suggest you go, and of course they put you on health insurance at work. So automatically, you're going to have to start using it. You're going to have to go visit a doctor regularly, and to be able to qualify to work for these industries. There's so much more to it, and you need to get your parents to tell you about this. And if you're a very happy, talkative person, somebody at work is going to suggest you get on sedatives. Yes, yes, this happens. And if you are a very quiet person, somebody is going to suggest you go see a therapist and get out of your shell. You're going to have an attack. These are the hard times, so stay home as long as you possibly. It's possible that you could stay home and build your own home on your parents' property. And I have heard parents, really nice parents that I know, they told me the other day that they told one of their children, if you'll come home, if you'll quit work over here in this other city, come home and live with us, we'll build you a tiny home in our backyard, and we won't charge you any rent. You'll have your, you'll have your internet, and you can work for your dad, and we will be together. And so, there are some parents, it's nice to be able to tell your children, we want you to be home until you're married, but you also, sometimes it's very valuable to say, okay, we have a plan, because that is one thing that the world is going to get you and your children, especially your children, behind your back. Somebody's going to say, do your parents, I see your home. Do your parents have a plan for you? What kind of plan do they have? Well, we don't have a specific plan for them, because we're just developing our minds. The children are developing their minds. We don't have a plan, like these rich, wealthy royalty has. You're going to go into royalty like we are. No, we are waiting to see what God will open up for us, and they don't understand that. Well, if your parents don't have a plan for you, you should go to college, because college, that'll give you a degree, and you'll do this and your debt. College will suck up all your money or put you into debt. They are a business, and they need your business to stay in business. They need your business to keep their campus up, to mow their lawns, to pay their electric bills and stuff. It's a factory they're putting you through, and they don't care about your soul. And even the Christian colleges are not what they say they are. I could tell you some stories about that people have told me about. I know one young man, he only went for one semester, and when he came back, I said, well, how was it? It's a Christian college. That used to be a dream for us in the 1950s, to go to a Christian college. They weren't called universities in those days, but it was a dream to go to a Christian college. We admired the people that came back from Christian colleges, because they came back with wisdom, knowledge, understanding, and good judgment. He only went for 1 month, and he came home, and he told his mother, I'd rather be at home working for my dad than in one of those places. He says it was a zoo. He said the students were just out of control, up all night partying and sneaking around, and he said it was awful. Now, I'm not saying all Christian colleges are like that, but I'm just saying there's a risk in all of this, being away from home and having parents in a home. Even if you have 6 children, 7 children, it's still 2 adults for a very low amount for 7 people or 6 people or 5 people. It's a better ratio than one, what do they call them, counselor or whatever in a dorm for 50 students, or one teacher for 30 students that come and sit in a class. That's not a good balance of wisdom and foolishness. It just isn't. So prepare yourself at home, and maybe I can give you a few ideas and a few tools. I've suggested in the past, you get yourself a blank notebook, and you get started writing down what you like to do, what you don't like to do, and start what you need to know in order to prepare for the hard times. I don't care if the world is at peace worldwide. In your personal life, there will be hard times, just because of the fact that this is what comes as you get older. That's why I say, if you're young and you're in your 20s, stay home until you're married. And that way, you'll part on good terms with your family, and then they will help you as a couple to be safe, to get a home, and they'll watch over you. And I am vital now. You all know what that word vital means, but I still watch for the souls. And I told you what watch meant, didn't I? What a watch was. And in the Bible, and I've I've mentioned it several times. When you watch for your soul, you're guarding someone's soul. And I'm still watching for the souls of my descendants, and I still call some of my sons baby boy. I still call him. I'll say, oh, I'll get this text or call, and I say, hi, baby boy. Uh, and when they were teenagers, they didn't like it, but now they want me to say it because it makes them feel young. Because now everybody's over 40, I think, by now. But I still watch for their souls. I never gave up my responsibility. And so another thing that happens is you need to learn while you're home how to use the phone and how to talk to people on the phone or off the phone, and how to make introductions and how to react when you do get an introduction. And if you're home with your family, they can take you through all that, or you can find courses that will teach you that. You have to be awfully careful what you're listening to, because sometimes you'll go down and read the comments under a really good etiquette video or an introduction, how to make introductions video. You start reading the comments, and that's when your mind gets pulled away in the other direction, when somebody says something that isn't the voice of the shepherd. And so this is what you have to be careful with. So I'll show you some of this right now. I know that kids and my haters have scoffed at these two books, The Christian Charm Course and Man in Demand. But I want to tell you why you need this at home. And they're workbooks. But the Man in Demand, I'll go with the Man one first. The Man in Demand shows how to make introductions, how to seat a lady or a girl. You could practice on your own sisters and your own mother for introductions, and you can have an introduction time, because if your father is working and he's preparing you for business, and if you're attempting to work for him, he may take you to his place of work where you will have to act like a gentleman. You can't just stand around and look at the floor or just say, oh, hi. You can't do that. And so this tells you how to seat a lady, for dining. You can do that at home. And you should plan some formal type dinners for practice. And then here's one, is what's wrong in these pictures, and it's all about how to make introductions, and how to introduce who to whom and when to when, And so our first names, here's who do I introduce first? Are first names enough in an introduction? What do I do when I am introduced? Is it proper to introduce myself? How do I introduce a newcomer to a group? If someone stops by my table at a restaurant, should I introduce him to the others eating with me? You could practice this at home. You could have one of the members of your family walk by and just say, oh, hi, how are you? And see what he does. Does a boy have to stand when being introduced at a table in a restaurant? Now, so this is Man in Demand, and it's by Wayne and Emily Hunter. You can get this on thrift books, and you can get it new too. I'd really highly recommend this. Now, you can tell when your young person is getting jaded and getting sarcastic and getting away from the voice of the shepherd by the fact that they'll make fun of something like this. This is nothing to make fun of. It is absolutely wonderful. Perfecting your manners, and it shows how to eat and how not to eat. And I've talked to boys that are having trouble at home or wanting to maybe kind of flirt with the world a little bit, and they feel socially awkward, so they think they have to go out, and be more social so that they will, feel more at ease. That's not how you feel at ease. You don't get around rude people in the world in order to feel more at ease. You can get used to it. You can start, so that it doesn't bother you, but it's not the way to feel at ease. And this has a chapter in it on overcoming self-consciousness and insecurity. And it shows the things that you could do to overcome this. But I don't think you should ever just hand this to a young man. I think you should read it to him. you should read it together. You read a sentence, he reads a sentence. Get 2 copies, okay? You read a sentence, he reads a sentence, and then you discuss it and ask him what he thinks of that concept, and or tell you why. Ask him to tell you why that's important. And then every day you go and just do 1 page. There are because it'll gel in their mind better. There are 80 pages in it, okay? So 80 days would be 3 months. And that way it's going to gel in you better. And always read and go over it. And read and go over it. Then when you go to page 2, do page 2, read that and ask questions about it or whatever, and then go back to page 1. So you just review page 1 and then page 2, and then when you get to page 3, you go 1, 2, 3, and just so that you back up so that you don't forget the first part. Then there's the Christian Charm course, which is the equivalent, and it has the introductions and the eating gracefully and how to act and how to act around young men and and it also has the Bible reading chart in here. Ladies, I can't tell you and get the older edition of the Christian Charm course that has this cover. The newer one is trying to be politically correct and everything, and I didn't like it as well. I sent it to my granddaughter. She wasn't as enthusiastic. This one was first published, I believe. The first published was 1965. Wait a minute. 1937. No, 1930, not 1937. It was 1967. I'm sorry. Okay, so the first publication was 1967, and that's when I got it, and I was 16 years old. So I read it, and I thought it was hard for me at the time to understand it because having been through public school, I just didn't have the mental focus to understand what this was about because it is is supposed to be touching the heart. It's open heart surgery. This book. So get this one, and then do the same thing. These are incredible. And when you start sneering at it and looking down at it, then your heart has gotten hardened and you're jaded and worldly. Now some of it is not doctrinally. Some of the doctrinal things in here. There was just maybe one thing I saw that wasn't quite right, but you could alter it. That's the way I did the homeschool books. Sometimes there were things in there where they didn't get something quite right, or the scripture was applied in the wrong way, but you can correct it, and your children need to learn to do that anyway because they need to measure it up against the voice of the shepherd, and you say, aha, that's not scriptural. So I wanted you to, I like that book, Our Mutual Friend by Charles Dickens. I didn't care for Charles Dickens. He was so dour. Life was just the pits with him, and he had these such sad stories. But the one that I liked was Our Mutual Friend, and I warned you about the movie that there's a couple of scenes in there that are kind of, I would say, gory. That you'd want to fast forward, and there was a last scene that an adult should always watch these things first. Okay, so Our Mutual Friend. Lizzie Hexam's younger brother Charlie he's got about 4 plots going at the same time in Our Mutual Friend. This is not for young people to watch at this point, but I will tell you the story. You might be able to get the book, which wouldn't have some of the scenes in it. The movies kind of overdid some of the things, but Our Mutual Friend is about several sets of characters. And Lizzie Hexam has a father his wife died, and so she lives with her father and younger brother Charlie. Now Lizzie earns money somehow, and she at home, I believe, or maybe I've forgotten what she did, but she used her money to get Charlie, her little brother, a better life. And she thought she was doing the right thing, and she sent him to a boarding school so that she said, get learning, Charlie, and then you won't have to live like paw in me, get learning. And she sent him to a boarding school with a terrible headmaster called Mr. Headstone. And Charles Dickens was always good about naming people after their actual character. Mr. Headstone was a dark, disturbed person. And and Charlie became very arrogant towards Lizzie because he started to look down on her. She wasn't now as educated as he was, and he started bossing her and telling his older sister what to do and everything. So Lizzie grieved terribly at the change in Charlie. Well, it's no different today. Education is not the same as wisdom, understanding, knowledge, and good judgment. And it won't make you happy, and it will fail you. Your education will fail you, and especially if it costs you money, it robs you and it fails you. So get these things at home. Education is not a big mystery. It's not some mystical thing that you can only get it if you go to college. I could take on. Look, my husband one time said to somebody that was criticizing me because I was educating my children at home, who are now all over 40 and doing well. They can read, they can write, they can communicate. One of them is a preacher, and the other one is a construction worker, general contractor. And the other one is married to an architect, and her whole family is involved in their own architectural business. They all do things. They all, one of them designs windows and doors, and one of them does something else, and one of them does interiors. And so, what was I saying? Someone was criticizing me, and Mr. S was sitting there, and he was saying, well, you're not very educated, are you? And Mr. S interrupted him, and he said, I would put her up in a debate against any professor in the local university. And she could debate him on evolution or creation or education or knowledge or wisdom. I wouldn't want to do it. And I don't, in order to debate these people of the world, you kind of have to know their language and how slippery they are. You have to know, when they're bamboozling you. And I would just probably sit there and think, what are they saying? So Lizzie Hexam, she was sincere, and but she didn't know any better, and her little brother turned into be a monster. So, so they'll say something like, I need some job skills. I need some interaction with other people. You can get all that at home. And it doesn't mean you're so isolated from everybody. You're going to see people every now and then. But these skills that I showed you, why don't you, you teachers at home, go through those books and use those for the total curriculum? Because there's enough in there. Like, for instance, I don't know if they don't teach a table setting, but they teach manners. Well, then you'll think, well, I should, if we're going to learn how to use our fork and how to eat and everything, maybe I should learn about table settings. Maybe I should learn why is the fork over here and not over here where you grab it, I'll tell you right now, the fork is put on the opposite side of your eating hand because they want you to go over and pick it up and pull it over here so that you don't just grab it and start shoveling food in your mouth right away. There was a reason for everything. Maybe you could learn a little bit about the table and the table setting. Why do people sit at the table, and eat? And there's so much you can do with this. It even has proper dressing for a young man, how to dress up and how to, wear proper clothes for things. And then you can go shopping and look for a suit and then say, why is this a good sound looking, stable looking outfit for a young man rather than this, and what kind of message does it give to other people? It had a section in it as how you could tell what someone was by the way they were dressing. It was very interesting. Okay, so So let's start building up our uh, life at home for preparation for the hard times during the time we're a youth. And so enjoy your youth at home and stay home. So let's start. First of all, it's going to prevent everything you make from going out to someone else, because you're not paying overhead. You're not paying a great deal of money to live in your house. So let's start by learning how to make a schedule from, the time you get up till the time you go to bed. After a while, you won't have to look at that or have a schedule because you'll be on automatic control. You'll say, oh, it's nearing noontime. I'm going to have to go wash my hands and comb my hair. And then I'm going to have to think about what kind of responsibility I'm going to have at the family table and help my sisters or be seated, or the young lady will help make sure that everyone is served, or help put the food on the table, or just any number of things, and learning how things work. Now, here's the thing that I have found out, that as long as these jobs in town last, that's fine, but that's not good for you, because those will fade and you will lose all your benefits. These jobs come with benefits. You're going to lose all your. There was a company in our town that was doing really well, and they were hiring members of the family. Like if you worked there, then you qualified to hire you. They could hire your sons and daughters because it was a family-owned business, and that's what they believed. But for some reason, the whole industry was shut down, and all those people that had benefits, health benefits and savings and insurance and stuff, they lost everything. So you cannot depend on these jobs. So we have to all figure out a way that we can be self-controlled, or self-employed, or interacting with another group of people that have the same beliefs, so that we can keep going in hard times. So I want to tell you about this book. Now, not everything comes from books, but you could get equivalents of this. So I wanted to tell you and ask you what you know as a young lady at home that makes you think that you should go out and get a job, or that you should just leave home or go to college or everything. I wanted to ask you what you know, and if you're going to know any of this anymore by doing that. And it's called Back to Basics, and it was an old Reader's Digest book. See, mine's all torn up, but you can still get these on thrift books, or they're on back. They're very popular. Now, I'm not saying you have to go back to basics and build a log house, or learn how to build a fire and all that, but I want to read in the index the things that are in here, and I want to ask you, and this is a big challenge I have to the public schools too, is what do they know? So I'm going to just go in the index and tell you and ask you, what do you know? Okay. What do you know about formulas for adhesives? What do you know about building with Adobe? How do you I'll just read all this and say, do you know any of this? Electrical installation, fireplace construction, floor construction, tools and equipment, okay, so backaches. What kind of solution do you use for backaches? Do you know any of this? Here's another one. Beehive keeping, beekeeping. Do you know any of this stuff? What to do with bee products? First aid, how to take care of bleeding, wounds, things like that. Bread making. Canoeing and canoes. A lot of people don't live around water, but I had some of these marked because I thought, this is my challenge to the public schools. What do they actually know when they come out, when they get finished with their public schools, or even if you've gotten a job and gone to work? What do you know when you're finished with that that will help you at all and make you self-reliant and independent and resourceful? So here are some more things. This would be for girls too, girls and boys. Cheese making, uh, cherries, apricots. It tells you all the things you can do with these things. Cooking with wood, the best fuels, safety, protection, working around fire, safety, how to make your own cough syrup, how to extract cream from dairy products, how to build a dam. If you've got a little bit of property, your backyard or whatever, you might want to look into, just learning some of these little things and put them on your schedule for the year of what you can learn while you're still home. There's still time. So let me just keep going here. Drills. Drills for woodworking. How to build a driveway. How to dry food. How to dye things with natural products. Food products. How to dye things. Okay. Electricity. How to generate electricity with water, wind, or batteries. Energy information. Energy saving measures. How to landscape. How to insulate. Types of windows for. You ever look at windows and just think, oh, those are just windows? I've got very bad windows here. When my daughter lived and sons lived here, they liked to go through magazines that had advertisements for Anderson windows. And they would say, now, Mom, that's a window. That's what I call a window. So, so you need to expose your children to all this. And we were able to buy magazines that were about houses, house plans. We bought house plan magazines by the dozens. That's why I'm in so much trouble here. Got all that stuff still back from 1982. And they always had house plans in the back on a little piece of graph paper, and they read these things because this is what they were exposed to. So energy saving measures, landscaping, underground, like cellars, energy sources, geothermal energy, magnetic sources and resources for energy. Let me just keep reading more of this. Do you know any of that? Do you know where electricity comes from? Do you know how to make electricity? I don't mean the electricity you get from your wool socks, but from the dryer. But do you know about waterworks? Do you know how plumbing works? Do you know about making a septic? Do you know anything about how anything works? So let's do you know how air conditioning works? I see an air conditioning truck going by here. This man is busy all the time. He's either he's checking on things or he's installing things, and that would be. There's also other types of things that people need and use. Okay, so fences, barbed wire fences. Post fences, gates for fences, stiles for fences, organic fertilizers, fireplace construction, fireplaces, history of fireplaces, chimney construction. Yeah, how do you know about fireplaces? Does any of you know what a flue is? Do any of you know anything? Goodness sakes, fireplace tools, fires starting and care of, wilderness camping, fires in wilderness camping, winter camping, wood burning stoves, managing a wood burning stove, how to make a firewood carrier, fishing, all the stuff to do with fishing. I won't read that to you. There's so much. And I'm only on F here. Okay, so what do you know? Do you know how to make a cold frame? Now, some of you are just living in suburbia. You can still do this in your backyard, just smaller. You don't need acres and acres of land. So sources and resources, flower drying, how to make a flea collar for a dog or cat, beekeeping, fly paper, how to make fly paper. See, what if we don't have all these products that you can just go down a store and get? How would you make fly paper? Or how would you make pest control that's natural? Okay, how to take care of fruit trees, how to make games and toys. So this is interesting. How to make games and toys. Oh, that's so interesting. Let me read it. Ball, bubble blowing, cat's cradle, dolls, jacks, jump rope, kites, marbles, optical, square dancing, Tag, Tops Whistles. Gardening in Limited Space, page 148 to 150. That's limited space in the paper. Artificial lighting for gardening, container grown vegetables, crop capacity, crop selection, daylight exposure, French intensive method for herbs, increasing growing space, planters, and kitchen gardens, history of gardens, planting of gardens, soil preparation. Goodness sake, look at this stuff. I can't read it all. All the different types of gardens. I've always thought a walking garden would be more fun. Um, Geese and ducks. Okay, I don't want to take on any living creature that I have to look after, because if they die, I will cry. So if I can't, I just can't do it. Okay, so under H now. Um, how to take care of your hair, how to make your own homemade shampoos, herbs, and home construction planning, anticipating additions on your home, architects, interior space allocation, mapping your land, landscaping, scaled floor plans, sources and resources, blueprints, home construction, access road construction. How do you get a road to your home? This is a big problem. When people start building their homes, they find out that the land has been allocated around the home to something else, and they can't make a road to their house. And you have to not be involved in land schemes. This is the thing, is people don't realize there's always somebody wanting to sell you something. You're meat to them if you're a young person. They're going to use you. And working outside of the home for most young people, because it always starts at a low wage, is slave labor. You're getting nowhere, and then the businesses around you is collecting that money that you're earning for your food and for everything else. It's just vicious. Stay home where you'll be safe, and also you won't get so bitter and jaded at life as people cheat you right, left, and center. And I've heard young people say to their parents, well, you told me if I went out and got a good job, people would cheat me right, left, and center. And there he is, living in the basement of someone else's house. He could live in the basement in his own parents' house, and he's paying rent, and he's getting sick, and he's not eating right. And he said, and no one's cheated me so far. Good grief. And so, okay, so how to make a hot tub. Oh, that's interesting. And there's lots of stuff in here. I don't know why I'm reading it I guess because the boys liked this book the best. But it even has braided rugs, and it's a lot of stuff for young ladies that might be interested, in young men, how to make a hand-cranked ice cream maker, how to make one, how to make a hutch and a table. I think most girls would love to have a china hutch. It kind of interests me that dining rooms of people, they're not interested in china hutches. I always loved them. How to make your own insect repellent. Spinning, gardening in limited space, jams and fruits. Let me just read some more. Kayaks. You interested in that? Making a kitchen garden. Knots for canoeing, and knots for net making. Knots for wilderness camping. And although I'm not saying go, teach your kids to go out in the wilderness and do all this, know how to do some of this stuff. The electricity goes out. What are you going to do? Even how to make lemonade, log cabins, how to build a log cabin. Ooh. How to make lumber, how to make mallets, things to do with milk and dairy products, forging of nailhead or nails, clues for building, woodworking. How to make an oatmeal scrub. Let me see what else they have here. So, preservation, salads, saunas, scrimshaw. How to make a smoker. Like if you want to smoke a salmon, how to make a smoker. Soap making. soaps, solar energy, all those things about how to make a greenhouse. Um, there's so much that can be done. We read about all these things in here. My boys just love this, but we never had the tools to and or the money to do any of this hardly at all. My youngest son figured out how to do a lot of things without without buying things, without the equipment, and he's quite talented at it. And how to get water, and how to make waterworks, water power, water supply, how to find a water supply or create a water supply for your home, cisterns. That cisterns, that reminds me. Have you ever heard that saying, your argument doesn't hold water? Well, that comes from a scripture in the Old Testament. I believe it was Isaiah. Goodness, I've been married to a preacher all these years, and I still don't know where anything is in the Bible, but I know that it was in Isaiah, and it was about my people have hewn for themselves. He said they won't pay attention to my word, but they've hewn for themselves broken cisterns that don't hold water. So there you go. You got a famous saying that's in the Bible. Let me finish my notes here. I might be here a couple hours, kids, but you could always turn it off and start over again tomorrow. So that's called back to basics. So, like, do you know how to build a bridge? Like, let's talk about your local area, your local town. How was that bridge built? Do you know how the roads were built? Did you know in the old days I used to sink logs from a tree? They'd cut down trees and make logs, and they'd sink them in to this marshy land, and start with that to build the roads. When I was little, I watched people build their little driveways and roads and stuff. But do you know how to build a road? Do you know where electricity comes from? You don't have to know how to do everything, but you have to know a little bit about it. You can come out of public school and not know any of this stuff. So that's the questions I would ask for people if I were to debate them about public school or college is what are you learning? As long as the system that we're living in, that's business and paperwork and web work and stuff, as long as that exists, that'll hold up you. But what if it doesn't? So you have to go learn something else. Nobody's ready to leave home until they've learned that. Hey, I haven't learned that, and I'm not ready to leave home. And it's about as silly for a young person at home to say I want to leave home as it is for their mom or dad to say I want to leave home. You don't need to do that. You can stay home. You can build your own home, maybe somewhere, or if you want to start building your own home, that'd be a different reason to leave home. Start building your own home, or get married. Of course, yes, that would make sense. Now, I wanted to say right here, just let me look at my crazy notes. Another lure. Okay, two more lures I haven't said anything about. And one of them is, do you have a girlfriend? Do you have a boyfriend? And so when you say, well, no, I don't. Well, I know somebody. I can connect you with somebody. Because they think you're not normal if you don't have a girlfriend or boyfriend. And if you're 18 or 19 or 20 and you still don't have one, they're going to lure you out thinking there's something wrong with you, and next thing you know, you've broken your parents' heart because you've run off with someone that they don't know. And sometimes parents don't find out anything until they see on Facebook that their children got married or had a baby, and didn't even know it. They didn't even know it till they saw it blasted to the world to everybody else. And so these lures are, they're there, and they're all using you for some reason. The other thing is religion. You have to be so careful when you're an older child at home that you don't start saying, well, I think this religion looks good and that religion looks good. And a lot of times young people are lured out of their homes via a religion that does not hold any respect for the Bible. They hold their leaders in higher esteem than they do Christ and his word. The last will and testament of Jesus Christ is the new covenant, the New Testament. And a lot of these religions that these young people are getting lured into just look at the Bible as a history book and don't care because what their leaders say is more important to them. So let's talk about the story of your family. I'm running out of time. I'm going to have to put big circles around my notes that I forgot to do because I've already been here an hour and 19 minutes. The story of your family. You know how I've been sometimes watching videos about, going to Jane Austen's house. You look in. This is where her writing desk was. This is where she wrote her first novel. Over here is where she and Cassandra had a cup of tea together and everything. What if you made a big deal about your own house? This is where we do this, and this is where we do that, and create the story of yourselves in your own house. I'm going to be doing that too. So when the descendants come back, I'll say, this is where your father slept, and this is where these are some of the toys he played with, and give them a history. I'm going to read about, let me see. Let me just make sure I got everything here. Don't be intimidated. Where's my Bible here? Don't be intimidated by the young person at home, or even a young person at home, by their gloominess, because this happens to everybody. I was a bit gloomy when I was at home, but I never wanted to leave, and I get gloomy here in